Good morning, everyone. It is Thursday morning at 8 a.m. I have been up since 6:30, which is new for me. I'm usually, especially when I work from home, I usually am not out of bed until 7:55 to start at 8. Last couple days, though, I've been getting up at 6:30 to try to give some extra help on my team because we're only 3 people. 2 of them start at 7 and I start at 8, and they're stuck all by themselves on the phones, which sometimes can go like 2 weeks being quiet, and then you'll have like a day of being insane, which is the day everybody has to make breakfast or go to the bathroom or, run around the office really quick, and then people like flip out and start complaining that, they're not being helped. So we've also got some big projects going on that are causing some phone calls to come in. So I figured maybe don't start at 8 and leave them by themselves. So that is why I am exhausted and unkempt and in my fuzzy robe. Actually, I'm in my robe because it's cold. I'm dressed, but it's like, Darth Vader with aloha sayings on it. So it's not work attire, but it is clothing. But I'm cold, and so I put on my fuzzy robe instead of my tiger blanket, which is somewhere else, which is why I don't have it. Anywho, I finished my October wrap-up filming. I finished my vlog, which went up yesterday. I barely got the editing done, almost forgot the thumbnail until I was uploading it and was like, oh, gotta do a thumbnail. So I managed to just get that done in time. And now I have to go through and edit my October wrap-up, which I filmed on the last day of October. I was so excited. I'm not like 2 weeks into November and filming it. So that I have to do my editing on, get that uploaded, because I would like that video to go up Friday, which is tomorrow. So we will see if I get that done. I have gotten 0 reading done. I kind of wanted to sit and listen to an audiobook here at home, and there's just something different about doing it here at home versus doing it in the office, and I don't know what it is. I think it's because when I'm here, I'm doing more detailed, focused-oriented work, and so having an audiobook in my ear is actually dividing my attention, whereas when I'm at the office, I'm doing more physical work, I'm running around, a lot less detail-oriented, and so I can listen to an audiobook much easier. But now I'm not getting my reading done. So the ever-running struggle of a reader, right? Okay, that's my update for now. It has been gray and dreary and foggy lately, but it's fall, so that's pretty much expected. I'm hoping for a little bit of a break in the weather, at least just mild temperature. I don't even care if it's raining, as long as it's mild, because I would like to get outside and get a walk in. I have been really sedentary this week. It is like I'll go from being on my feet all the time at work to not getting off my butt while I'm working from home. So I need a little bit of physical activity. Plus, I got to break in those new shoes that I got from my last vlog. So I will check in with you guys later. Cracked her tooth right in half. So we are at an emergency dental visit. Our primary dentist retired a few years ago, and she's not really been excited to try to find a new one, and sure enough, this is what happens. Now you gotta go with a busted tooth. Good morning, guys. It is, looking around for a clock and a calendar, Friday morning at 8:30. So you saw from my last update, had an emergency dentist visit last night where my mom's tooth cracked in half and my dad could not get her to a dentist right away. So I found one and took her. Should have been a simple extraction, but the tooth cracked horizontally instead of vertically. So instead of just being able to pull the two pieces down, the tooth had basically like almost sheared itself off. Then they found that the root was very, very narrow and it had like fused to the jawbone, so there was drilling involved. I don't do tooth stuff very easily. It is my one big thing. Teeth, root pain, the sharp, like, oh, I can't. It is my biggest fear. I've literally, since I was a little kid, had nightmares about stuff going wrong with my teeth. And from the time I was a little kid in kindergarten, I had to wear a retainer because I had an immense overbite. And so I had the retainer that had the two interlinking metal posts from top to bottom that literally pulled my jaw forward, and I had to do that for over a year. Then I had to get spacers, which at the time were these thin metal rings that they fit over the tooth that's where it's crowded, and they literally hammer it up and around the tooth to push everything else around. So I had multiple spacers in my back, on my back molars, to push because I had a lot of crowding in the back. Then I think I had, now it was either me or my brother, and it's really weird to me that I don't specifically remember, but I think maybe we both had it. I think at one point after my jaw was pulled forward, I had the retainer that had a little metal key, and you had to turn it because the roof of the mouth, the teeth were too crowded in, and so the retainer, as you turned the key, it spread and it was pushing the teeth further and further out to open up the palate on the roof of the mouth. And then I also had a really big gap between my two front top teeth. And so after the first retainer, after the second retainer, and then after the spacers, I think it was after the spacers, then I got braces. And I was in braces for 5 or 6 years. Like, it was maxed out at how long I could have braces in. And they had, you know, the metal at the back that was never clipped down close enough, so you had it literally just a piece of metal stabbing you constantly, and then you had to get these little strips of wax, and you peel off the wax and you put the wax back in over the metal so that you wouldn't be bleeding. I had a lot of stuff in my mouth from the time I was in kindergarten to sixth grade. I think the end of 5th grade and into 6th grade, or into 6th grade, is when I finally got all that stuff off. It was a lot. It was so much. And so I've always been freaked out about my teeth. I try to take really good care of them. But then my dentist that I've had, the family dentist since before I was born, decided to like go and retire and like just live his best life and abandon us. So my mom has not been to a dentist in a while. I have not been to a dentist in a little bit, a few years now, actually, now that I think about it. And so anyway, teeth story short, we got her to a dentist. They were great. They gave her the main visit, all the x-rays were free because she doesn't have dental insurance. which is incredible. Like, x-rays can be so expensive. So they charged for the extraction, and then they put in a bone graft so that she can eventually get an implant, which they had to do that night. Otherwise, it would not have worked in the future. So, sorry, I'm working at the, oh. He just changed it, that's why. Okay. I have to unlock somebody's account, and I'm like, what are you doing? I thought his password expired. No, he just changed it. Anyway. We were there for a really long time because the extraction took a really long time, but like, they were amazing. The girl was so incredibly kind, and my mom's kind of a nervous person when it comes to her teeth because she has a lot of sensitivity, which is why she's been scared of going to the dentist. And just, they were so good. They were so good. And they talked to her about all kinds of stuff and made her feel so much more comfortable. So she had the extraction done. She's, you know, all puffy and sore, but at least she's out of major pain from a cracked tooth. Oh, I can't even. It freaks me out. Oh my God. It freaks me out. The idea that a tooth can just split down to the root. I can't. I can handle stuff. I can handle so much stuff. I can handle broken bones. I can handle, you know, gaping wounds. I could probably handle like really gross stuff, but teeth stuff. Ugh. And yet I watched the entire thing. Once I knew that my mom was not in pain, I was fascinated by the process. Like, I was in there the whole time, like, watching them drilling. It's knowing that somebody's in pain, because I know what that teeth pain feels like. So anyway, we did end up, I mean, it was expensive for what it was. The bone graft was the most expensive part, but they gave us like every discount they could. No service visit, no x-rays. I mean, that saved hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars. They took so many x-rays. So we're gonna make a plan going forward. After a week or so, she's gonna go back for a cleaning so that then they can kind of do some scans, talk about implants, talk about her teeth are really misaligned. And they have some options for that, and they said that's probably what's causing most of, if not all, her sensitivity, and the fact that her tooth broke, because the misalignment causes your bite to be off. And they said that they're finding that misaligned teeth is what actually causes receding gums, which is the problem that my mom has, which is what's causing sensitivity. And so she said they have alternatives to braces, which my mom did not want at her age. I didn't want at my age, but I'm grateful I had them. So it'll be interesting to see and to price out, but it's worth it for her health, really. And I loved this dentist because I guess it's her practice, and she said she really tries to give as many discounts as possible. She said it's not fair that people can't afford dental care. Dental care is so expensive, but it's not just dental care, it's medical care. And she's like, it kills me that people don't have access to medical care, to dental care specifically, because if they have to make a decision between medical and dental, medical, tends to go first, because dental is a lot of times looked at as less important when it's really not. And she was just the best. And I have not found a new dentist yet, and I kind of think I might go to her, actually. I need a cleaning. I haven't gotten my teeth cleaned in a few years, but I have sensitivity issues, which is why it scares me, because I've had some, after my dentist retired, he left the biz. I ended up having to go once or twice to just new dentists that I didn't know, and they can be brutal. They can absolutely be brutal. And I can handle so much pain. I'm not going to get into stuff because that's a little personal. I can handle pain. I don't like it, obviously, but tooth pain. But then I also have the anxiety that builds because I know that cleaning my teeth regularly is super important to keeping them healthy. But it hurts. So anyway, it ended up being a good outcome. It was almost $800 total, but between my mom, my dad, and myself, you know, trying to all chip in for the emergency expense, I don't think it's going to be too bad to cover. And then going forward, we'll be able to like know ahead of time and plan out and try to get So she has Medicare, and she has a Medicare Advantage plan, which does come with dental insurance. And I assume she's got a very common for our area, dental insurance, Medicare Advantage coverage. They don't take that coverage, and I guess a lot of people have that problem with that facility, and it's one of those things where it's like, it's not a private practice, it's part of a chain, but within that practice, the owner has some ability, some options to give discounts and stuff, but they don't necessarily control what insurance is taken. And in the United States, dental insurance anyway is almost a joke. If you're gonna get good dental insurance, it's so ridiculously expensive. So ridiculously expensive for good insurance. Your basic insurance that most employer plans cover and that most Medicaid, Medicare plans cover is like a free cleaning twice a year, x-rays once every 2 years, I think, and then maybe between 30 to 50% coverage on certain things up to a limit per year, which is usually like $1,000. I think I've seen some of them that are like $2,000. And it's like, okay, that is something. I mean, it is better than nothing. But compared to what medical covers, what the heck? Anyway, I can't. Like, okay, I'm just gonna ask this. How are your teeth and your eyeballs not part of your body? Why is this not medical coverage? Why are my eyes and my teeth not considered part of me? I don't get it. Okay, I'm gonna sit in my angry medical insurance headspace for a little bit. I am almost through Death on the Nile. Well, I'm not almost through. I'm like more than halfway through Death on the Nile. Finally, somebody got murdered. I've been waiting for it, honestly. This one I feel like it took a while to actually have somebody die, which felt weird. But we just got our murder victim. So we got that going for us. So now the mystery starts. There was a lot of character setup going forward, which was interesting because obviously it's wanting you to start picking suspects before anything happens, because you kind of at least feel like you know maybe one of 3-ish people that might be the ones who end up getting offed. And so it kind of starts the character work first, so that you have biases built in by the time something happens and you're starting to look for a suspect, which I think is really interesting. I like it. I'm enjoying the writing. It is a work of its time. I will talk about that a little bit more in another wrap-up or another vlog entry. The writing style, the writing technicality, and the dialogue is very good. But it is a work of its time. There are things that, if it were written today, would be written differently. And rightfully so. But I personally, again, I'll talk about this a little bit more in depth eventually, but when I read a book, I try to take it from the perspective of being a work of its time that doesn't condone or excuse those things. It gives an explanation and a background to them. And I think that's a very important thing when looking at literature and making a judgment call on the contents of it, the message of it, and the method of it. So that's my opinion. that is so vague because I don't have time to talk about it because I was just supposed to do a quick update. And okay, I'm gonna go back to work now. I just realized I recorded an entire update and it wasn't recording. So let's try this again. Good morning. No, good afternoon. Oh my God, I did it again. It is noon on Sunday, so I'm about to leave, but I wanted to give a quick reading update. So like I said, I think I said it in my last update. I finished Matt Haig's How to Stop Time. It was just fine. It was okay. I think I gave it like 2.5 stars just because there was nothing particularly exciting about it, but it wasn't bad. After that, I read In 5 Years by an author I can't remember. The audiobook narrator was the same voice that narrated the character in Evelyn Hugo that I really didn't care for. So that took a little bit to get over. But the story ended up being, I would say 3.5 stars. I thought it was actually really good. If you're like me and you don't really care for the romance genre, don't be fooled into thinking this is a romance. It's really not. And I think the reason that I ended up putting it on my want to read list was because of some of the Goodreads reviews that kind of mentioned the same thing. It kind of sounds like it might be a romance from the synopsis, but it really is not. So without spoiling, because really talking about it in any depth would be spoiling, I feel like. The basic premise is that you follow Danny, who has her life planned out. She lives by the numbers. She's already with the man she wants to marry. She is getting the job she wants for the next, decade, 2 decades of her life. She knows exactly what area of New York City they're going to move to. She has it together. And then she falls asleep one night and wakes up 5 years in the future. She's in a completely different home. She's with a completely different man. She doesn't recognize anything about her life. And she only experiences a few hours of it before she wakes up in real time back in present day. And so then she has to decide, knowing that is exactly 5 years in the future, does she pursue it or does she try to prevent it? And can you prevent, can you change fate? It ends up focusing on the relationship mostly with her best friend and with her fiance, which I actually really liked. So it focuses a lot on her relationship with her best friend, who is like her polar opposite in every way. But they have such a tight friendship and such understanding and appreciation for each other. That I really liked. I loved that was the focus of that friendship, and it wasn't about them trying to change each other to fit each other's mold. So all in all, I really, really liked In 5 Years, and don't be scared off if you really don't care for the romance genre, because it's really, really, really not. It absolutely focuses on relationships, some of them being romantic, but more in the overall scope of life and not just for the sake of focusing on romantic relationships. So I would definitely give this a recommendation. I would say people, I think, would enjoy this book. Again, that was In 5 Years. Then I finished Death on the Nile by Agatha Christie, another Hercule Poirot mystery. Liked it a lot. I'm going to say 4 stars. I thought I had this one. I thought I had it. I did not have it. But I had the second to last suspect that was cleared. Excuse me. Which actually made me really happy because I was not going to get the big reveal. There's no way. But the fact that the person that I had kind of pegged for it, that being the person that was the final person cleared, kind of made me feel good because it was not the most obvious suspect and it was not the most obvious clearing of the suspect. So I was happy about that. I thought even though there were a lot of characters in this novel, each one of them was well fleshed out. They had different motivations. Their backgrounds, to the extent that they could be explored, were explored. they were very real people for the most part. There was a couple that you really didn't get to know very well. But they were just kind of background characters. They didn't factor too much into the story, which was, you know, that's a fine compromise for me. Writing was really good. Really, really, really enjoyed it. Now, I will point out this is a novel of its time. So the setting that it was in, with a bunch of rich, white, British, and American people being in Egypt, there is some language and some ideas that are not appropriate. They're not okay. They're not correct. They're not fair or human. That being said, again, it is a novel of its time, and the idea that I don't like the idea that we don't read or can't read or shouldn't read novels that have these ideas in them, particularly if they were written back in those times, because it's kind of like you're whitewashing and ignoring history. Like, well, if we don't talk about it, then, like, people seem to think like if you acknowledge that it happened and if you put it into books, you are advocating for it. And I definitely do not think that that is correct. I think this is eventually a bigger discussion that I want to have, but like I have to collect my thoughts on it and kind of make some bullet points, because otherwise I'm going to ramble for like 30 minutes to try to get a point across, and I don't really want to do that. But I just don't really care for the idea of canceling books, canceling works of literature because they don't meet today's standards. Now, if you have an author today who writes a book that is inappropriate, I feel like that falls into a different category. But when you're taking pieces of literature from the past, I think you have to view it through a specific lens instead of trying to view it through today's lens. Or, not that you can't view it through today's lens, but doing so with the understanding of you're looking into the past. You know, you're not looking into present day. So anyway, that's my rambling. I gotta get going. I am now reading The God of Small Things, and I have no idea what it's supposed to be about. Again, it's one of those, I put it on my list and it came up in my Libby. So far, it's beautiful. The writing is just lovely. The similes and the metaphors that are in it so far, it is flowery and poetic and lyrical in every sentence, and yet it doesn't feel like too much. And I think that is a very, very difficult balance to strike. I think there are some authors who are absolutely beautiful writers, beautiful lyrical prose, but when they try to do it all the time, it is too much. But so far, it is woven so perfectly throughout every single sentence, and it never feels heavy-handed. It never feels too much. It never feels flowery without purpose. So I'm enjoying it. Again, I'm not exactly sure what the overall story is about. It is so far following two twins who were two fertilized eggs at the same time. They didn't split from the same egg. And their unique relationship with each other and the caste societies, the caste systems of India, and where their family and their relatives fall within the caste classes, Hindu versus Christian, sort of a slice of life kind of a thing so far. Really, really interesting. And I am glad that I did pick up the audiobook, because there's a lot of, I don't know what language. I don't want to say Hindi because I'm not sure if it's Hindi. But there's a lot of Indian dialects that are spoken in different quotes and things. And to me, it's like reading like Tolstoy, where you just, in the middle of the translated novel, there's just French, but the French isn't translated. And I'm like, I don't know what that's saying. So to have it narrated and have somebody be able to read it to me, and so I can hear at least what it's supposed to sound like, I still don't understand exactly what's being said, but I like being able to hear it authentically. But yeah, so far beautiful. And when I get further into the story, I will give you guys an update. So I will talk to you later. Be safe out there.